Welcome to Taking Stock. I'm Amanda Lang. Coming up on the show today, with a shortage of doctors in Canada, one simple solution could just be a paper shredder away. And before we count on a mild recession, we will explore the risk of a bad one. Plus, Google is under scrutiny for anti-competitive behavior. Are we overly trusting when we like a service? That's all ahead. First, though, for the week that was in business, it's time for the briefs. The economy cooled in November, potentially setting the stage for a stall in economic growth this year. Early numbers from StatsCan suggest the economy grew just 1.6% in the final 3 months of the year. Still, the increase in economic activity is stronger than the central bank expected when it raised rates again last week. One Bay Street economist chalks that up to the consumer holding up better than expected.
What we're looking for in 2023 is that more material mark to be left on people really scaling back their consumption. It's the only way really you're going to get the pressure off of prices is for people to rotate away from some of that spending.
The U.S. Central Bank raised rates again this week by a quarter percentage point and signaled it will not cut rates this year if the economy performs as it expects. But a very strong gain in jobs in January may actually call for a rate increase. 517,000 jobs were added as the unemployment rate plunged to a 53-year low of 4.3%. New voluntary standards for long-term care delivery in Canada were unveiled this week. The federal government has now published 2 separate sets of recommendations aimed at improving care for the elderly in long-term settings. The provinces actually set regulations for the homes, and most are developing their own standards. A meeting has now been set between the Prime Minister and premiers to try to reach a deal on federal health transfers. On February 7th, the provinces will make the case for an increase in the federal share of health spending, rising to 35% from about 22% now. Maybe the feds can use some of the $11 billion of unspent dollars in healthcare. That plus billions more added up to a record $38 billion of promised programs that never materialized last year. An approved price increase for dairy farmers will send retail prices higher for the 3rd time in a year. It comes as the U.S. files another claim that Canada's supply management system is violating our trade agreement. A previous such dispute was settled in the U.S.'s favor, but they argue Canada has not since changed its practices. And those are your business briefs. Better healthcare could be just a little red tape away. New data suggests doctors in Canada spend 18 million hours a year on unnecessary paperwork. That translates into enough time to see another 55 million patients per year. The research is part of the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses Red Tape Awareness Week. Laura Jones is Chief Strategic Officer at CFIB. Laura, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on, and happy Red Tape Awareness Week.
And I know you, in part, use this data as a way into that bigger story that for every business, this is not just kind of an irritant. It costs hours and time, and therefore service and money and the rest of it. When we look at the doctors and that 18 million hours a year, it's extraordinary. How shocking was it to you to find that that's how big the kind of unnecessary filing and paperwork and transactional stuff is?
I think it's shocking, but not surprising in a way. Doctors have been complaining about this for a long time. I mean, when you take this down to a level, those numbers are so big, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around them. But when you take it down to a level of the average doctor, and this is based on some work done in Nova Scotia, where they looked at how much time doctors are spending on paperwork, and it's 10.6 hours a week. So more than a full day a week on administrative tasks and paper burden. Some of that is necessary. So some of that we're not calling red tape. But about just over a third of it, the doctors are saying could be eliminated or someone else could do it. And that would free up a lot of time for patient visits.
And one of the things that'll really ring true for a lot of us is we know doctors are behind the curve on digitization, right? There's still a lot of paper going on. Systems don't talk to each other. And I'm guessing that's true for a lot of smaller businesses, Laura, that they don't have the systems in place to ease the way. We forget that a lot of medical practices are small businesses, right? They're kind of independent practitioners on their own. What's a way that we could make that better? We collectively, whether that's government supports, sort of collective efforts by the part of certain sectors, how could we get rid of some of this unnecessary work?
Well, I think we have to roll up our sleeves and do what Nova Scotia did and take a deep dive into what are these irritants. Let's quantify them, and that's what we wanted to do, is take what they did in Nova Scotia and put that on a national, put that in national terms, the kinds of hours that we could free up and patient visits, and then set a target to reduce it and start doing the hard work of reducing it. So in Nova Scotia, set a target of 10%. I think that's a good place to start. If we did that across Canada, that would be 5.5 million patient visits. That's a substantial difference in the lives of a lot of Canadians and a lot of doctors. And then they went and looked at what are the specific forms that are causing irritation. And so one they took a look at there is a form that's needed for people to get employment assistance, that doctors to qualify for employment assistance, and doctors have a form they have to fill out. And it was a huge irritant. That one form alone, and they've changed some things that made them simple check boxes instead of fill in the blank. You only have to fill out the part of the form now that's relevant, simplified some of the language. That alone is freeing up the equivalent of 18,000 patient visits.
Wow.
So I think we have to do that level of hard work, and we're challenging all of the provinces to get on. This is kind of common sense. This isn't a radical policy idea. This is common sense.
Sometimes common sense is in short supply. Laura, great to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Laura Jones is Chief Strategic Officer at the CFIB. Coming up next, the Canadian economy has proved itself to be resilient, but how much of that will change in the months ahead? Stay with us.